All right, well, welcome everybody. We are glad you're here for our Rector's Forum today. Today we're going to be talking with Abby Emmert, who does scouting and player development for the women's basketball program at UVA. But she's going to be talking to us about a variety of topics and about principles she's learned from her work that apply to the Christian life and how we follow Jesus in our everyday life and live in community with one another. So Abby, let's talk a little bit about how you got into this role. What was your sort of journey to get there?
Yeah, so I wanted to start off talking a little bit about how I ended up here and a little bit of my testimony and how it all fits into where I'm at now. So, like you said, my name's Abby Emmert. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and lived in Missouri my whole entire life before moving out here to Charlottesville 2 years ago. I grew up with 3 brothers, and I was the only girl, so you can imagine that our household was pretty crazy, super competitive, lots of sports. I see there's young girls in the room, but I remember growing up, we'd be playing Monopoly or something like that, and out of the blue, my brothers would be like, all right, girls versus boys. And I'm like, how are you supposed to win in Monopoly if it's just me versus 3 people on the same team? So I would get out pretty quickly, but my parents showed me some tough love, It really taught me competitiveness and how to, just compete in a certain way. So I grew up with 3 brothers. Both my parents were high school teachers. And they made a lot of sacrifices for my family and I, all my brothers. They sent us to Catholic school, and I was in Catholic school my whole life until my time in college. So I was in Catholic school from preschool all the way through 12th grade. And I'm super thankful for my time there. It was very instrumental in my faith life now and just in setting a foundation for me. And I'm very grateful for my parents for, making that decision. But besides that, my parents, from a very young age, instilled in me this idea of, discipline in my faith. And this idea that, no matter what else is going on, your faith life, it can be, it's unwavering. Like I said, I have 3 brothers, so we would have tons of different events on the weekends. But I can count probably on one hand how many times we missed Mass. It didn't matter. No matter what we had going on, they made sure we went to church on the weekends. That was a non-negotiable in my family. Just having that discipline of, making that choice. And that's something I'm really, really grateful for. And they showed me in a discipline in a variety of ways, but that's, the main thing I kind of wanted to touch on. Like I said, I went to Catholic school my whole life before college. So I was lucky enough, I got recruited to play basketball at Missouri State University, which is a mid-major Division I program in Southwest Missouri. And my time there was incredible. It was an absolute dream come true. Made so many memories. Actually met my husband, he's over there, during my senior year. And so my time there was awesome. But that didn't come without struggle. And I think that's kind of the main thing I want to talk about with my testimony, that I would go through struggles and remaining faithful to God. He always seemed to pull me out of whatever it was and make my situation better than what it was before. There was always this light at the end of the tunnel. And so my freshman year, I get to Missouri State, loving life. And about halfway through the year, I just hit this wall. And it's kind of hard for me to explain what it was, because I don't want to say I wasn't depressed or anything like that. I'm a very happy person, but in this little time, I was extremely anxious and just a little bit sad. It was just weird. That's just not who I am as a person. I hit this wall. And so I remember one night in my dorm room, just sitting there what's going on? And it was to the point some of my teammates started to notice. I'm always the girl that has a smile on their face. That's just who I am. And I think they started to notice and feel it a little bit. So it made me kind of look within. What's different about my life right now? And it hit me, like, this is the first time in my life where I wasn't in Catholic school. Which is, you know, what I mean by that is like the first time in my life where I wasn't in this solid Christian community all the time. Like, it was the first time in my life where I wasn't like praying before every class, or I wasn't taking theology classes. Like, I took religion and theology classes my whole life before college, so I had time like in the Word. It was already scheduled in my daily life, and I would go to mass every week with my friends. Like, it hit me like, wow, like I need to take some accountability and have discipline, you know, that was already scheduled out in my everyday life normally. Like, I need to take some accountability and, you know, put that into my own life. And so freshman year, I ended up like recommitting myself, like really focused on opening up the Bible every day. Like, I would read a chapter out of the Gospels and then one psalm like every day. Something small, but like it really made all the difference in the world. Yeah. And eventually I got out of this little like kind of rut I was in. Finished the rest of the year, like had a pretty good season, and going into spring, like made some goals for myself for my sophomore year. I wanted to, you know, be, like I played a lot as a freshman, not a tremendous amount, but did decent. Like, I wanted to make a better impact. And so I started to do like all the right things. Like, I was eating right, working out more, getting extra lifts in, getting extra shots up, like still continuing to have that discipline in my faith, like really made that a priority. And so I was like in this sweet spot. Like, I could just see myself, like I was getting better on the court, just like was in a good spot, right? And then one day in postseason of my freshman year, we had just lifted as a team and went to go play pickup with the practice guys. In a meaningless game at the end of April, went up for a rebound, and when I came down, tore my ACL. And so I see some young girls in here, but like, it's always something, like if you guys play sports, like I feel like it's the words you never want to hear, like you tore your ACL. Because I've seen so many of my friends do it at a younger age, and I, you know, had made it to college without that, and it was like awesome. And then boom, this hits. And then I like went down fast. Like, I was so like mad at God. Like, why would he put me through this? Like, here I am, I'm trying to be the best person I can be, you know, making him a priority, making, you know, my sport, academics, like I'm just like, I was in this groove, felt like I was doing everything right, and then this hit. And so that was really hard for me. Luckily, I had some friends that just, like older girls on the team, who really, you know, just pushed me and challenged me to think about, like, you know, this is for a reason. Like, you may not understand now, but it's for a reason. So eventually, like, I got back into the Word. Whether I honestly at the time was not like super into it or feeling it, but I was still like, all right, let me get back to reading it every day. Even if I'm not like understanding it now, like eventually I will. And I got out of this rut. And there was a verse that stuck with me, and it hit me, and it was like mid-June, so it was like a month after surgery. And I remember reading, and it was in the Psalms, so I was still going like gospel psalm. And it was Psalm 37:4. And it was, seek your happiness in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desire. And I don't know why, it just hit me like, oh my gosh, like, I was seeking my happiness in so many other things besides, like, God. Like, I was like trying to improve my faith life and my spiritual life, but still my happiness and like where I found like my joy was in my sport, not in God. And I remember that hit me, and it was like, all right, this is a challenge. Like, the rest of my rehab, like, you know what? I'm gonna do as best as I can, but my happiness is not in this. Like, my happiness is in God. So worked really hard, got back to playing. I only missed like 2 games in my sophomore year. So I was, you know, had surgery in May and was back to playing in November, like end of November, which was awesome. Ended up making a huge run that year. Our team did. We were like this little mid-major team, and we made it all the way to the Sweet 16. Lost to Stanford by like 8 that year, but made this tremendous run. And I remember thinking after the season, like reflecting back, how thankful I was that I had gone through my injury, which was such a weird like feeling. But just so thankful because it helped me to enjoy like the run we had so much more. Like I was just so grateful to be able to play, which was awesome. And the end of my sophomore year hit, we went on that huge run, and the day we got back, it was announced that our head coach took a different job. And so our whole team was like, just distraught. And for some reason, I was like, you know what? God had a plan for me when I hurt my knee. Like, he's going to have a plan for us now. And so I really wasn't like that concerned. It was weird. I was like really calm. I was like, he provided for me in this time of it when I had my injury. Like, he's going to provide for us now. And so it was announced that our new head coach was going to be Coach Mox. So I'm not sure how many of you guys follow the women's program here now, but she's the head coach here at UVA. So we'll get into that a little bit. But she was my head coach. She was announced, and our whole team was like ecstatic. Like, God put her there for a reason. It was awesome. Not a single one of our players transferred out, which is crazy to think about in today's like world. She came in, brought in her staff, and none of us left. Like, because we were like, well, we want to play for her. And so again, it was like God showing me, okay, this time of uncertainty after season, you don't know who your head coach is going to be. Boom, he places someone amazing in our life and within our program. So fast forward a little bit, had a great junior year. We were ranked, we had actually ended the year ranked 13th in the nation, which is crazy. And that was COVID year, so we didn't get to play postseason. Which again, another time of like uncertainty. The whole world's like falling apart. But again, I was like weirdly calm with it. I was like, we'll be fine, God's gonna provide. And he did, get into senior year, and it's kind of unsure on how things are gonna be with like masking and testing and all that, but it didn't matter to me. I was just grateful to play. And made another great run, made it to another Sweet 16, which is crazy to think about. And then it was announced in that year that we got to take our COVID year. So we got an extra year of eligibility. Okay. And so I, like without a doubt, the day we found out that, we had another year, I was like, oh, I'm taking it. Like I went up to Coach Mox, I'm like, I'm playing again. Like I don't want to leave you. Like I'm here. Get into my 5th year, going great, playing my best basketball. And 4 games into the year, we had played at USC out in California. And it was like a minute and a half in the game. I went up to like tip a pass, and when I came down, tore my other ACL. And so that was really hard for me. Like my whole, like again, I love Missouri State like more than anyone. I was like, I love my alma mater so much. Loved playing basketball, loved my coach, and then boom, just like that, my career was done. And so that was a really, really hard pill to swallow. And again, I went through that phase of like, I was mad at God, but I knew in my heart, like again, I don't know why I was going through this, but it was for a reason. Turned out that the day I had my ACL surgery, another girl on our team tore ACL. And so that showed me like pretty quickly, all right, Abby, like you're gonna help her through this, and I was able to do that, which I think was, helped out that girl a lot. But anyway, still, struggling with like, okay, why? Like, obviously I'm helping my friend through this, but like, why am I going through this? I could have helped her through it. I already had an ACL. I could have still helped her through it. And ended up becoming like a player coach. So I like would keep statistics and do other things like that on the bench during games. So that's how I finished out my 5th year. And then it was announced after the year that Coach Mox took this job, and she called me up. She knew I wanted to get into coaching, and obviously I had that experience, like, help doing a little bit of coaching roles and stuff. My 5th year, she offered me the position, and I was like, without a doubt, yes, I'm here. I want to be here. And so again, it was just an example of like, I was hit with something. Like God put something in my life. I didn't know why, but He ended up like making it so much sweeter than I ever could have imagined. And I think like one of my favorite verses, like thinking about it now, is Hebrews 13:8. And it's Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And like that's something I've leaned on so much the last couple of years, because it's like no matter what God put in my life, like my life might be changing, but Jesus is there. He's the same. Like I got to go back to Him. And so that's, I guess, a kind of long answer to your question. That's kind of how I ended up here. I played for Coach Mox and the staff for 3 years, and then she knew I wanted to get into coaching, and she brought me along with her. So.
Well, thank you, Abby, for sharing that testimony. There were, I think, so many important things in what you said, important lessons or reminders for us. Two that really struck me. One was, where do you find real peace and joy in life, right? And I think this is a great struggle for us as humans. We want to put our faith, our hope for joy, peace, happiness, fulfillment in things in this world, whatever they might be, whether it's playing basketball or something else. And these things come and go, don't they? Right?
Yeah.
Life is filled with things you can't control. They are not firm foundations. But what you're getting at, what you've realized in your journey, is that there is only one firm foundation in life, right? There's a line from Scripture that we say every Sunday here at the final blessing of a service, which is the peace of God which passes all understanding, right? From St. Paul. You only have that peace when you're grounded in the firm foundation. And your life is a testimony to that. I mean, you circled around that many times. The other thing that I really was struck by was the importance of discipline in becoming who God has called you to be. We need discipline in lots of areas of our life, right? If you're going to be a great athlete, it takes a lot of discipline. Right? You can testify to that for us. But if you want to be a spiritual athlete, so to speak, it also takes discipline. And you recounted an experience that any clergy person is going to know, because we're also trained to be in that spiritual discipline, kind of a spiritual athlete. Sometimes you don't want to do your prayers and read the Bible. You might not be in the mood. You're not feeling it, right? But those experiences are what shape your character and form you into the person you're talking about. So really, you've laid out for us in your life here two critical elements of the Christian life. Where do you find your joy and your peace? And how do you grow as a Christian? One kind of follow-up with that is, how do you apply these principles in your work with the athletes that you work with?
Yeah. I mean, I love what you talk about with finding your peace in God surpasses all. I think in college, I really came to know and experience that. I really did throughout my last couple of years. My relationship with God grew so much, and it became very evident that one, God is real, because the amount of peace I had sitting in church, just taking him in was incredible. But yeah, I think I apply it in a variety of ways. I mean, it's not easy to get up and go to work every morning, one, so just having the mindset and remaining disciplined in the fact that I'm going to go and I'm going to be the best Christian I can be today.
You don't want to always go to work every single day.
But just having that mentality of I'm gonna spread God's joy every day. It may not be easy, but having I do think it is a mentality sometimes. It's you got to make a decision. Okay, I'm gonna remain disciplined in this every day. And I think I love I think I'm in a unique position on our staff, having played for Coach Mox and the assistants for 3 years, and then now finishing up my second year on staff. I feel I'm able to relate with the players so much. And so sometimes I have to step back and realize I know I'm how much of an impact just even how I act day to day could have on them. Because I know they do look up to us and people on staff and stuff like that.
Can you give us some examples of moments maybe where players or others that you work with have had struggles or were going through something difficult, and you felt some of these principles we've been talking about were applicable, and you were kind of able to help them through whatever they were dealing with?
Yeah, so I actually do Bible study quite a bit with our players. And so obviously in that, it's a very vulnerable time. People will, express things that they're going through. But I've heard time and time again, athletes, our demand is in going in 1,000 places, and especially here, looking at how many things our players have to do throughout the day. Academically, they're pulled very thin. athletically, you have so many different demands, weights and practice and, meetings and stuff like that. I just lost my train of thought. And
lot of time commitment.
yes, yeah, and so just being able to relate to them on an extent, but also encouraging them to okay, you're getting pulled a lot of ways. Don't let your discipline and your faith waver.
Right.
Find time. Whether you're gonna if before bed is a hard time, you're exhausted. Okay, wake up a little bit earlier, or even just all right, as you're walking to class, pray to God. Thank Him for the day. That's where we can marvel so much at God is nature and weather and stuff like that.
It's sort of it's like stewardship of time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a big struggle in life, to use your time well. There are so many temptations that draw us away from using our time well. We kind of squander it and wonder, where did all that time go? Or what was I focusing on? Was that really where I should have been putting my energies and so forth? You're getting at this, and I've noticed this with a lot of the folks we've interviewed here and talked to that are in the UVA athletics program. There is a strong focus on having kind of discipline and good stewardship of time in a variety of areas of life, right? It's almost like you have to, because you can't function if you don't do that. There's no way you're going to be an effective athlete.
Right, yeah. And, I'm within our program, it's really cool to see now that I'm on the staff on the other side of it, just how much our coaches invest in helping athletes just through their life. If we have an incoming freshman coming in, they're really struggling with wow, this is a lot. And of course it is. Here's a fantastic university. Academically, it's very rigorous. But just seeing how our staff cares for the players on not just an athletic level, but on a personal level first. Right. Just seeing how we all invest in the players from that aspect, try and help them organize their daily life, just help them, create a structure, because it is needed. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of peace with that too,
yeah.
Having a discipline and having a structure, so yeah.
So you do work in scouting as well, right? How do you communicate these values and principles we've been talking about to potential athletes?
Yeah, so Coach Mox is a fantastic basketball mind. Let me just start.